Now just paint a few lines with the phthalo green. You could lighten it up. You could lighten it up just a little bit with white. A few lines to show reflection right there. And then next, painting the green part of the lily pads, which I use a small detail brush right there, which is pointy, and mixing up some yellow green, the phthalo green with yellow, and I'm gonna just paint some round shapes for the green part of the, if they're lotus flowers, but well, I don't know what you call that, the green part of the lily pad. Just oval shape. And I'm gonna put it in 3 places. It's up to you which 3 places you want to put in. If you want to put in 3, that's what I did. Putting in 3. 3 is an odd number. Like 3, 5, 7 of things are usually used in art when you're painting objects. Like putting 3 odd numbers of things in, 3, 5, or 7, or makes it more interesting to the eye to see an odd number. So there I am painting the second one. And then I'm gonna jump the third one. The third one, I'm not gonna show you that I'm painting that. So after they're done, dry it. Okay, I'm still working on that third one. But after you're done, 3 of them, you just make sure they're dry. I blow dried it right there. Because next step is going to be painting the lotus flowers, and I'm using an angle brush. That's about a 1/2 inch angle brush. I'm new to using an angle brush, and they're really very helpful. So for doing flower petals, they're really excellent paintbrush to use. So I'm just using white, and I paint the outer petals first, kind of like a big smile. And if you just fool around with the angle brush, you'll see how you can go from thin to thick and create like petal-like shapes. Like on a spare piece of paper, you could fool around with brush strokes with the angle brush. The angle brush is good. You can go from pointy to from pointy to thicker. With just changing the direction and pressure of the brush. So try to make each lotus flower different. I kind of think after looking at this that I didn't make each one of my lotus flowers different enough. Like the direction of the petals could be different angles. So each lotus flower, it would be good if you make them different, like with the directions, I mean, big, small, and directions of the petals. Okay, now I have painted I painted 3 lotus flowers there, and I went back in with violet, and in this case I'm using Prism violet. And it's because the white is not dry, the violet does mix in and makes it a light purple. And it depends on you what color you want to make your lotus flowers. Oh, now I'm using black and outlining the green lily pads. And you can do that with a small pointy detail brush or an angle brush. Next step is adding green, a medium to light green right into the water for reflections of the lily pads. Just like a few lines to indicate it. And now next step is painting the little flowers on the grassy hill. You can make them all one color, it's up to you. I did make them all one color. Well, some of them are very light purple, and others, if they're in the shade, they're going to be a darker purple, medium purple, and then the ones that are up on the top of the hill, I make them a light purple. And again, using the 1/2" angle brush, it's really good for making flower petals. Just like I said before, fooling around with it, how you use the point and the direction and how you put pressure. You can fool around and see what kinds of flower petals you can make. So again, create some random variety here, like small, large, medium, petals going in different directions. Now I'm painting them at the very top. And those are going to be a lighter purple. I start off with it being a dark purple, and then later you'll see how I might have added a little white already there, but later you see how I'll add white right over the darker purple to make them lighter. So here I am adding pretty much straight white, or you can mix very light purple, and I'm not covering up all of the purple, but I'm adding white to make highlights on the flowers. So as many let's see, I'm mixing black and yellow, which is going to make a shade of brown, and that's going to be for a dot in the center of each of the flowers. Okay, so now we're in the home stretch, and I just want to apologize again that I had to change the composition while I'm doing this tutorial, and I had to block out those colors, I mean those shapes, and change it from a big giant bush to 2 trees. Now here with just straight cobalt blue, I'm kind of softening out the edges, blending out the edges of the halos of the halo of the moon. You can see I did put paint black on the right side of the sky, but you don't have to do that because the trees are going to be covering that. Now with some very pale blue, it's up to you if you want to use very pale blue or just straight, very lightly straight white, very light pressure. I'm making this curving snake-like line on the stream, and I'm painting lightly with the brush. Even some of their right there, it's more like a dry brush effect right there. In fact, this whole thing is dry brush because the water has dried by now. But there, I'm letting it just be some light swirls in the water. So the swirls are kind of like snaking back and forth. And that's a 1-inch half brush. I mean, not 1 inch, that's a 1/2 inch flat brush. You can see right there, one of my lotus flowers is yellow, but later on I changed that, and I make all my lotus flowers the same color, the light violet. So even when there's not much paint on my brush, I still make the swirly lines on the stream because I just want them to be pale and faint. Okay, now I'm about to paint the two trees on the right grassy bank, the right grassy hill, and I mix cobalt blue with black, and I wanted a pretty dark mixture. But before I'm mixing the color right now, but before I paint, I'm going to get out my chalk. This is where chalk, because in the materials list I do say chalk or pencil, but it's more desirable to use the chalk. It's going to show up on a dark color like this where I have to draw out where the trees are going to go. So actually that's, your kids might have sidewalk chalk. That's what that is, the big piece of white sidewalk chalk. And the thing about the chalk, it shows up on dark colors, and if I made a mistake with a damp paper towel, just wipe away the chalk. So I'm angling that tree towards the outer corner, and angling that tree towards the moon, and the two tree trunks are going to overlap. And trees are always smaller at the top and they get wider at the bottom. So that's how you're going to make your tree more realistic. If your tree is wider at the bottom, or in that case, I started from the top to the bottom, where it's smaller, thinner at the top and gets wider at the bottom. Now I can go ahead and paint in my dark blue mixture. And you can do that with a 1/2 inch or 1 inch flat brush. Again, if you always want your paint to glide easier across the canvas, just add the tiniest bit of water. Next thing, fan brush. That's a medium-sized fan brush. Fan brushes are excellent for grass and foliage, and here I'm going to be painting the pine tree branches and leaves with the same dark, it looks like black, but really there's a touch of blue in it, a touch of cobalt blue. And just tapping it here and there. You just tap it a little bit here and there, and you can make the suggestions of the pine needles, or the pine needles, or the leaf. I mean, sticking out in different directions from the branch. Just tapping the brush lightly. So now with the fan brush again, and the same bluish black mixture, just same thing again that you just did with those pine tree branches. You're just going to do it again on the next tree. tapping it in different directions, tapping lightly. And it's up to you if you want to add highlights on these trees. I think you can go either way, adding highlight or not. You would just tap in lightly with medium blue probably on the branches and on the sides of the trees. But I think you can go either way with highlighting the trees or not. So thank you for following along. I expect my tutorials to improve with each tutorial. Here already in this tutorial I had greatly improved my camera angle so my head was never in the way like in my last tutorial. And in my next tutorials I'm hoping that I will not have any glitches with my composition, even though I had done a practice painting. And also please share your paintings on our Facebook page, which is Artists and Art Lovers International, which I'll link it below. I'd love to see what you've done. So thanks so much for watching. And if you didn't check it out, check out my very last tutorial, which was Dramatic Sunset, which you can see in the little video clip right there.